Hi, welcome to today's episode of the Tanis Fiber Arts podcast. I am Tanis. Tanis Fiber Arts is my hand-dyed yarn company. I'm also a knitwear designer. I pointed to this as I said that. I did not design this. And I talk about yarn and color and knitting and life here on my channel. So I hope you stick around and listen to what I have to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about a couple of the knitting projects that I've recently completed and that I'm currently working on, a new pattern that I launched last week, and also our Boxing Day update. Let's get into it. So number one, I'm going to talk about this. This is the Kai Fella sweater designed by Knitwits and Yarn. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Tanis, didn't you make this for your son? And the answer is yes. Yes, I did. But he isn't here right now. And so I'm wearing it. And it's a Christmas gift. So I'm going to see if I can show a bit more. Absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. So my son is 9 years old. He is smaller than me, but not significantly smaller than me, and I have recently come to the realization that when he outgrows the items that he's currently wearing, I will inherit them. I have two other kids. He's my eldest, so there's two other kids who will also inherit them, but this sweater he will outgrow because he is still growing like a weed. I will not, because I have reached max height, and so I get to wear this too, and I'm so excited. I'm if I were knitting it, had I knit it for myself, so I'm super happy with how this came out actually. Had I been knitting it for myself, I do suspect that I would have chosen either it would have ended up a little bit larger, probably longer. I wouldn't have been as conscious of making it like for a 9-year-old, because I would have been making it for myself. And so things like length, I don't know if I would have been thinking about them as much. I'm not sure. But all that to say, I did make some modifications to the pattern. The pattern is written, it's sized for men, whatever that means, because men come in all different shapes and sizes just like women do. But just to say, it's not a children's pattern. So like the length of the sleeves as written is longer, the length of the body as written is longer. So what I did is each of these squares in the pattern, it specifies how many rows per square to knit, and I did 4 less rows of each color. I'm quite certain, yes, 2 or 4, oh gosh, now I don't remember, but I'm sure I put the details in my Ravelry project page. So I did fewer rows of each color square, so that there's 5 total rows, that adjusted the length significantly. Same for the sleeves. I did not adjust the width of the squares, but I did adjust the needle size. I knit this in DK, the pattern's written for worsted, and so I was using I'm knitting at a tighter gauge, and so then the whole thing was just kind of shrunken down. And I could not be happier. Like I used my Highland DK, which is a beautiful non-superwash woolly merino Cordale blend. It's very soft. You know, it's not like merino soft. It has that woolliness to it. I'm not irritated by it at all. I'm just wearing it over a thin tank top. It doesn't bother me. I absolutely love it, and I just think that the woolliness really adds to the pattern. And remember, I talked about this the last time in my last episode, what a hard time I had choosing colors, because initially I wanted it to be really multicolored, and then I went through like 3 or 4 iterations before I landed on just blues and grays. And to me, the fact the black is sort of a pop, and then this bright blue is the pop, everything else kind of blends a bit more, and I feel like that I wasn't really looking for pops. I really wanted, because the pattern is I guess busy, there's a lot going on, I wanted to keep it had to be like a little bit more relaxing. It got pretty clownish pretty quickly when I tried to do more colors for my personal taste. And I had mentioned also that I was thinking of doing a 2-color version, and I am still very much considering it. I have other things that I need to work on and complete first, but I do think I think I would knit it the exact same size and knit the exact same thing. Maybe no, I I'm inclined to want it to be like even more oversized, but it's a pretty good drape for me, right, as is. So I'm like a neutral one, I think would be really beautiful. And I'm very excited to see my 9-year-old in it. He doesn't know that it's for him. He hasn't tried it on yet. I'm going to wrap it up and give it to him for Christmas. And then for sure there will be photos. Obviously it's going to be a bit more oversized, a bit slouchier on him, and he'll grow into it over hopefully the next couple of years. Like I think it should fit him for a little while. However, I do suspect he's at an age where like he's going to start growing like 6 inches a year soon. His dad is tall. My husband is 6'3", so I'm expecting him to be tall. I mean, there's a good chance he's pretty tall already. And you know, teen boys, he's not a teen. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's just, I'm excited to see him wearing this. It's going to be so cute, and I know he's going to love it. And somebody asked me recently, like, you know, do you have to knit it in secret? Like, do you knit when he's not around? And no, I knit this completely in front of him. I mean, I do most of my knitting in the evenings but he goes to bed later now because he's older. So he sees me knitting. I don't put it away. It's all just like in my corner, my knitting nook. It's not that he has no interest in my knitting. It's just that he's so used to seeing me always knitting and always working on something that like, it's not something that he's asking me about every day because it's just a regular thing, right? So, when I give it to him, he might be like, oh, I didn't know that's what that was. Like, I didn't know that's what you were working on. But he's certainly not sitting there being like, ooh, I wonder if she's working on that Christmas present for me, because it's, you know, it's just like something that they're so used to. They're just unfazed by it. And that will lead me to my next project, which is a sweater for my middle son. So he inherits a lot of sweaters from his older brother. He has a pretty decent sweater wardrobe. He wears all his sweaters, so he's very knit-worthy. But he is at a phase currently where he does not have many sweaters. I think he's about to inherit a whole bunch from Rowan, but Rowan will wear them, my eldest, until they're too small. So by the time he's willing to let go, they're already, like, my middle son doesn't get as many years, like as much wear out of them because they're not as big when he receives them, if that makes sense. So this is just for him. And look at this. It's a cardigan. It's just missing sleeves. So a gorgeous stripe. This is the Gramps cardigan pattern from Tin Can Knits, and I'm knitting it in a new tweed sock yarn, a new to us base that will be available on Boxing Day. And it's fantastic. I'm doing it 2 strands held together. It's a worsted weight pattern. So it is a beautiful, like, really cushy fabric. The tweed neps are multicolored. They're red. They're primary multicolor, basically. They're gold, red, and blue. So many tweed yarns that are available on the market have just like beige and black neps, whereas these ones are multicolored, and I really like that. They're also very small. They're not these big chunky neps, and I tested a couple other tweed bases before I decided on this one, and I just have to say I love this one so much. The other ones, you felt like the neps, you could just pull them out. Like they photograph nicely. I didn't love knitting with them, like just the little samples I did, and then I just didn't like, they looked too messy. I wasn't happy with them. So I kept searching and I found this one and I really, really love it. Here's a couple colorways. Oh geez, so sorry. The palette that it is inspired is a lot muckier than some of our other palettes, and like I'm really inspired by the yarn when we're determining what colors. This is just a selection. I have like 20 colors dyed in this. This yarn, to me, it absolutely shines in any neutral, grays, beiges, whites, like those colors with the neps. They're just so yummy. And then we've got quite a few greens happening in this base as well. There's just Maybe it's like because you think Ireland when you think of tweed, and then I think of green, but the greens are not like bright bluey greens. They're kind of yellowy greens. They're just like, I can't describe it really other than kind of the palette that came out of this yarn is muckier, and I absolutely love it. We actually even were being really discerning with the colors that we release. I like to think we always were, and my tastes are just sort of changing and evolving, because we did a whole day of dyeing, and the colors just came out quite bright and like clear and sort of uninteresting. And so we took all that yarn that we had dyed, put it back, soaked it, put it back in the dye baths, and added sort of like gray and brown to every color to make them deeper, richer, and muckier. I hope that nobody's turned off by the word mucky. I just don't know how else to describe it. They're just, I mean, they're not all, like I would not call this a mucky teal. This is a beautiful color. And this is quite clear and bright, but this one suits it to me. But then this is like a nice grungy greens. This is beautiful neutral, always love that. And then this color, it's like a coral rather than like a bright pink or like a really clear red. It's kind of orange, it's kind of beige, it's kind of red, it's kind of pink. And these are the colors that I'm really drawn to at the moment, the like in between colors, the nuanced colors, and I'm really loving them, both in the tweed, which we are going to have a ton of available on Boxing Day, and all this yarn behind me over here, which is our Yak Silk DK. And in this row here as well. And I think that's part of it. The Yak Silk, the base, the undyed base is actually over here. It's like a gray-brown base. It's not like a crisp white or creamy color like a lot of our yarns are. And so it takes the color in this really beautiful, rich way. And that is something that kind of really inspired a lot of the other colors that we've been dyeing recently. So back to this little fella. These are the type, obviously I love the turquoise colors. I'm a blue turquoise girl, but my son is a green, gold, orange kind of a guy. And so I went with this palette that combines both of our loves, and that we can both be happy with. And I think I'm so pleased with it. I think he's going to really like it. He actually requested a cardigan because he recently outgrew this one, which, as you can tell, it's a similar vibe, right? That's what I really liked, this sort of brown, gold, neutral zone. Like, you look at it and you're like, this is so colorful, but everything, like, there's so many neutrals in it, and I just love that. So he outgrew this. This is a Playdate cardigan by Tin Can Knits. My daughter has since inherited it. So, but she wants buttons. My eldest, when I made this for him, he specifically wanted a cardigan, but he wanted no buttons. And now my youngest, she's like, thanks, I'll wear this. Where are the buttons? So now I need to find some. I made button holes when I knit the sweater, because I thought, well, somebody might want buttons one day. And I was right. So now I need to find some buttons for this. And then my little sweetheart will wear that. And then for, my middle kid. So this is his new cardigan. I did consider knitting another Playdate because I knew I wanted to use the tweed, and Playdate is fingering, whereas this is worsted. But I'll be totally honest, I just didn't want to knit a fingering weight sweater on a deadline, you know? And I know I love working with two strands held together. You get the best of both worlds. You get to enjoy that luscious fingering weight yarn, and you get to knit a lot faster. So this is I'm just missing the sleeves, obviously, flying off the needles. It will definitely be ready, which then means I've got a sweater for my eldest, a sweater for my middle. I really feel like it will be down to the wire whether or not I make a sweater for my youngest. I feel like I should. She's got a lot of sweaters. She doesn't need one. I also currently have like a little one skein, let's call it a shawlette on the needles. It's kind of like a half scarf, half shawl number. I'm not going to show it because I'm doing it in one of the Holiday Sock Club colorways that you may or may not have opened, so I don't want to do any spoilers. But I'm wondering if I can like give that to her because I'm almost finished. But then the other two get a sweater and she gets a scarf. Is that fair? I don't know. So we're just going to see. I'm going to carry on with this sweater for my son. if I have time and I decide, you know, that I'm ambitious, these are TFA mugs. And if I think I can make another sweater, she's small, you know, so I never say never. There's certainly possible. I'm not sure. So yeah, but I'm really loving that little tweed number. I love the colors. I'm big into stripes, and also there's something very just so satisfying about holding fingering held double, because I think it makes me feel like I'm being like really clever by achieving a worsted weight gauge with a fingering weight yarn. And I think that it's just so versatile. People, like, I think if I could only ever have, you know, in some sort of weird universe where like I committed a crime and the punishment was you can only knit with one weight of yarn again for the rest of your life, that I would choose fingering because it's versatile. But I just think that's fun. I just love it. So then the next thing to show you, you've already seen. Let me move these out of the way. But I've made a bit of progress, is my Paul Klee sweater. You guys saw this last time when it was just the yoke, and while I've added the main color for the body, and I've started knitting round and round and round and round, and then this is 100% been put on hold while I finish up Christmas knitting, right? So I knit a little bit on it in between this sweater and starting the next sweater, because I didn't have my colors chosen for my next sweater. So I had, you know, a few nights while we were dyeing the yarn and just figuring out the palette to work on this. So I did that, and it's coming along. It's coming along swimmingly. I do hope at some point, maybe when I'm finished knitting this, which will be after the holidays at some point, to offer some kits for this with the with rainbow. It won't be exactly like this because these are not all TFA yarns, but this will not happen before the holidays. But it's something I'm mulling over because I do really love it. It's super fun. I would love to facilitate others to be able to knit this pattern, and it requires 18 for my size, more colors for other sizes, less for the smaller sizes, but 18 different colors for the yoke. So it's quite involved in terms of color selection and potential kit making. So it's not something that I'm going to be able to do in the next couple of weeks. I didn't mention, this sweater is knitted in Tarja, in case anybody was wondering. And it was do you know what? I do have a little tip. I don't know if this is a tip, but basically I would not say that for me it would be a super portable project, because sometimes you see people knitting in Tarja and they are knitting from just small balls of yarn that they sort of wind up and then hang from the back of their project. So I think if you're doing like a ton of colors, that you do that to keep them all straight. This was just 5 colors per row because knit in pieces and then seamed, and there's 5 blocks of color, 5 squares. And so I didn't do that winding off mini balls of yarn. I just had my full skeins of yarn, and I only knitted at home. I do 99.9% of my knitting at home anyways. I'm not really a out and about knitter. But if I was, this is not the project I would have taken with me. And I would just line up my 5 balls of yarn next to me. And as I was like in color order, as I was going across, and I would knit across, and you've got to twist the yarns like between the colors as you're switching colors so that you sort of lock it in the back and you don't end up with a gap between the 2 colors. And so I would twist it, always twisting the same way. And I think that's quite intuitive because it just is. So always twisting the same way as I would go across, and they would all get tangled. And then you would turn and you're pulling back and you've got to twist the yarn again. I would untwist it. So then by the time I've purled back to the beginning of the row, all my yarns are then untwisted, just not tangled, all lined up perfectly again. I hope that makes sense. And it just made it really easy. So I generally would always stop knitting, like when I was done for the night, after having untwisted all the yarn. But the row, it's really not so big that even if you did get yourself into trouble and yarns would get tangled, I don't know, I'm tempted to say that you could knit the whole like square, a whole repeat or a whole segment with and then, you know, cut the yarn and deal with, like, untangle it. It's super much more easier to untangle when they're not attached to a project that way. But as I say, that it was never an issue for me. I would just let them tangle, then untangle them. And tangle is a dramatic word for this. They weren't tangled, they were twisted. So I would lock it in, twist it, and then unlock it. And it worked super well. And then, let's jump. I'm sorry, I just like went all over the place with this sweater. But I probably should have talked about this first. But it doesn't, you know. I did mention this on an episode a while ago, and this pattern has been published. This is called the Swish Scarf. And it's my new brioche scarf pattern. And it's free. I should have mentioned that first. It's a free pattern available on Ravelry. It uses 2 skeins of DK weight yarn. I currently have kits in the shop. All of my kits, like, I think you could use any colors that you want. You could also do it in a ton of different colors. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you divided your colors, this would be super fun. Take all your scraps, divide your colors between light and dark. Anytime you run out of a color, just switch to a new color. And you would have this really cool multicolored shadow effect. But the way that I've done it is I chose a really statement speckle colorway. The light blue one, and then essentially a solid. None of our colors are they're all semi-solids. A solid for the contrast color, and zigzag swish swoosh. I absolutely love it. So it's really, really cushy. I mean, I would wear it like this if it was really, really cold. But, you know, there's a lot of ways to wear it. It's a scarf. I find scarves super versatile. I find that people in knitting scarves, I find they're not the most popular. People tend to love cowls. I don't. Or shawls. I do. But I also love scarves. I think that they're just really, really practical and easy to take on and off. Really easy to, like, wrap around and tuck. I live in Montreal. Like, it needs to be really warm, actually, right? Like, it can't just be cute. It's freezing. And yeah, I just find that I really get that from scarves. And brioche scarves, this in particular, are really, really cushy, very, very cozy, really squishy, stretchy. Like, do you see how it's like, it's a really cool fabric. So I'm really happy to have published this pattern, to have written my first pattern in brioche, because it's a totally different language than, I mean, it's knitting language, but there's all these little abbreviations that are only used for brioche. And so it's sort of like learning a new thing, you know? And so now that I have that skill, you know, I'm excited to see if it opens some doors for me in terms of designing in brioche. So, hello, beautiful Swish scarf. I do love her. I love her. And what's next? Oh, Boxing Day. I wanted to tell you guys all about Boxing Day. So I talk about Boxing Day like everybody knows what it is. Years ago, I started doing a big sale on Boxing Day. Boxing Day is December 26th. It's the day after Christmas. And it's traditionally, in Canada at least, it was a big sale day before Black Friday, I think. So it was the day where things would go on sale after the holidays. And years ago, I would have all this extra inventory. This was before I would do regular updates. It was like when websites just functioned like you had your stock, the products that you made, and they were available on your website. And then everybody kind of switched to updates, and then it became more sort of, do you know what it is? What I'm trying to say is this. There was a time years ago, like let's say like 10, 12 years ago, where people weren't familiar with the update format, right? Where it was like you would have something available that was maybe one of a kind, that was available in very limited quantities, and you would put it for sale and it would sell out, and then it would maybe never be available again. It's like that's not how people shopped, and it created a lot of stress and happiness among customers, because if they did successfully buy something during an update, they expected to be able to buy more, and oftentimes updates would be one of a kind. I feel like I'm really getting off on a tangent here. That's not the point. My point is this. it started because I didn't have a way to sort of sell, or I don't want to say get rid of because it sounds so negative, but like to make available one-of-a-kind skeins, like batches of yarn that we would dye. The color would come out not quite right, so we would dye it again, but then it wasn't a color that we sold, but it would be this like really fantastic batch of layered, twice dyed yarn. How do I sell that, you know? And so the answer back in like 2015, maybe, when I started doing this, I don't even know when it was, I did an update on Boxing Day where I added all this inventory that I've been basically collecting for a year of one-of-a-kind skeins of yarn, colorways, maybe bases that we didn't stock regularly. And yeah, I did that on Boxing Day, and I made it free shipping. And I think that the reason I made it free shipping was because I thought that people wouldn't want to buy this stuff if there wasn't like a little incentive. Turns out, like, I was wrong. People now love one-of-a-kind stuff, and people, you know, shoppers understand that one-of-a-kind, what that means. And so Boxing Day took on a life of its own for us. It started off as a way, we didn't do any real like dyeing for Boxing Day. It was all extra inventory that I was trying to unload. And then it morphed into a thing where it's just our biggest update of the year. We do free shipping on orders over $30, and that means that's just so that if you buy like one pin and it costs, you know, the price is $10 or something, but it costs me like basically $10 to ship it. It's to avoid things like that. Okay, so I'm not like totally losing all of my money, but so $30 it covers. Like if you buy one skein of yarn, it's free, and we dye like crazy for it. We do still focus on sort of one-of-a-kinds, bases that aren't always available, but really now it's just like a really big shop update. And we work all December. I mean, we started in November working towards it. We have a ton of yarn. Never enough in that there are so many options. Like, we always have a ton of yarn available. At this point, I think we do enough that it's not that stressful for customers. Like, we're going to sell out in like 10 minutes. That's not the situation. I mean, never enough in that we make so many products. We make so many different types of yarns and kits and yarn packs and mini skein sets and all this stuff that it's like, it's really hard to decide what to feature, because even though we start working on this like weeks and months in advance, I don't know that we can ever have everything available at the same time. There's just too much. So we have to sort of pick what we want to focus on. This year we're going to have a lot of our new tweed sock because I'm obsessed. We have a lot of the yak silk DK because it's so gorgeous and we haven't had a restock of that in a while, so we're going to focus on that. We're going to have a lot of purple label cashmere sock because that's something we haven't had in a while either, and it's something that people love and that it's fun to bring back on Boxing Day. We're going to have mini skein sets. I'm also really hoping to have tweed mini skein sets, which would be really cool. And I mean, also lots of other stuff as well. We'll also have a lot of speckles and worsted and DK, hopefully. Yeah, so I'll be adding to Instagram as we complete sort of dyeing certain things. I like to have a dye to order. That's the other thing. I'm not listing stuff that we don't have available. Oh, I'm sorry, not dye to order. The opposite, ready to ship, because it is a really big day for us. We sell, we have more orders than usual, obviously, and having it ready to ship makes me be able to process it and like deal with it a lot better. We generally, so the sale starts on the 26th, and but then since we work all the way up to Christmas preparing for the sale, I then take like the week after Christmas off between Christmas and New Year's, and I don't do any shipping that week. So I start shipping in January, and it can take me a while to get through it all. But having everything, labeled and there and ready to ship is very helpful. So what? So we're going to have so much yarn. It's going to be so exciting. I hope you come on Boxing Day. The other thing that I think I'm going to do this year that I've never done before, but it'll be a fun experiment, is I'm going to include with every order, you'll get a card with a coupon code for percentage off your next order. And they'll have a window for when that next, like for when that can, maybe it's like you have to place an order within the next 6 months. Like it won't be never expiring. But I think that I've never done that before. I've received that type of promotion with orders that I've placed in the past from other companies, and it was something that I always enjoyed and appreciated. So I don't know, I thought it would be something fun. Tell me if you think that's cool. I mean, I don't know if anybody would say, no, I hate that. I hate discounts, but I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that'll be kind of something exciting for people when they open their orders. Oh, and sweatshirts. So you've seen me in my navy knit embroidered sweatshirt twice in episodes recently. And we're going to have, there's still some in stock, but we're dwindling. We're running low. So I've made a reorder that will be available by Boxing Day. Like I don't have them yet, and I won't list them until I actually have them in hand. But I have, firm confirmation from my manufacturer that they will be available before Boxing Day. And I've ordered a zip-up hoodie option. So the navy blue original is a crew neck, and now I'm ordering a zip-up hoodie. So I think people will be happy. People have been asking for that sort of thing. And since this design, the embroidery is off-centered and not like the zip-up doesn't disturb anything on the center, I think it's going to be very cool. I also, this is a risk. I don't know if anybody will be interested in this except for me. I've ordered sweatpants. So you can wear a whole knit sweatsuit. Are you going to love it? Are you going to hate it? I don't know. It's a gamble, but I'm sort of excited to wear my knit sweatsuit. So that's how you have to make decisions when you run a small business. You sell the things that you would want to buy. So that's what I want. Head to toe knit sweatsuit. And it's coming. So I think that's it for today. Hopefully I will gather the strength to do another video before the update, to maybe run you through a few more. I don't know about, I find doing a video just about specifically what will be available in the update is only relevant for such a brief amount of time, because once it's done and the sale is over, it's like this video is no longer helpful. Unless you just like looking at beautiful colors and hearing people talk enthusiastically about yarn, then I suppose it's always relevant. So, but I will see you again soon. I hope that you love my new sweater as much as I do, and I also hope you're excited for tweed sock, because Lord knows I am. All right, friends, I hope you have a wonderful lead up to the holidays, and I will see you again soon.